Oh, sorry, it says only. My only.
Did you get the minutes? Your physicality.
May I have your attention? That's it, just.
We're gonna call the meeting to order here.
Lisa, you have a gavel.
Welcome to the Midcoast Community Council meeting of February 12th, 2014. Will the council members please introduce themselves, starting on my left? Dave.
Dave Olson, present.
Chris Johnson, here.
Dan Haggerty.
Lisa Ketchum.
Laura Stein.
Aaron Deinzer.
Joel Janelle.
And Don Horsley from the Board of Supervisors for District 3.
So the first item on our agenda is Supervisor Don Horsley and your report.
Well, thank you, Lisa. First of all, I'm just going to say that, we always do call this Donuts with Don, and for those of you who don't know, it's because I was in the Sheriff's Department for a long time, and everybody thinks cops like donuts, and I always say croissants, but they're worse than donuts, apparently. So we're going to do that this coming, actually, it's February 21st, it's be 10 a.m. till noon at the Moss Beach Sheriff's substation. Instead of donuts, I have a 2.5 or 2.8 pound box of chocolate candy. Somebody gave me this big box of candy,
Wow, that's a lot of candy.
So instead, we talked last time about the comprehensive transportation management plan. So in that case, we did receive a proposal. Actually, it was a single proposal, and it was submitted by DKS in partnership with Nelson and Nygaard, Flint Strategies, and Diet and Batia. And these are the consultants that are actually participating in the plan Princeton. The evaluation team met last week, and the proposals comprised of James Hintkamp, he's the transportation planner, Steve Monowitz, he's the deputy director of planning and building, Joe Lococo, these are the people who did the evaluation, as well as Nicholas Calderon, who's done a fabulous job for a number of projects. Actually, we really, one of the things that, we have, everybody's having problems with water, obviously, and Pescadero, we're really concerned about the aquifer, and we have a project to get a grant from the Prop 84 to dig a deeper well so that we could guarantee that their water supply is going to last for longer than the original Todd report, which indicated that we're pretty close to being at the end of the aquifer's life cycle, and our public works, and really because they were driven by Nicholas, we got the $700,000 grant. One of the reasons that's so great for that community, it's a disadvantaged community, very low income, that we really couldn't, there's no way that the community's going to be able to afford to dig that deeper well, so we were able to get that grant, and I really give Nicholas a lot of credit for that. We all know about the Moss Beach Park, that the county took that over. A couple things we're going to do. One is a bathroom that we've been waiting for a long period of time. The good news is that it's coming in. The bad news is Public Works is responsible for, I shouldn't say that. But in any case, it's going to be, again, it's a project that Nicholas is on the phone constantly. When is that bathroom getting in there? So now we understand it's going to be done in 2 months. So all the engineering's been completed. And that was kind of the holdup. Engineering, the water and sewer hookups were all approved some time back, but we had to have it has to be engineered to be on a pad in essence. So it'll be installed fairly quickly. While it's being installed, the county's also going to be working on some of the existing drainage issues as well. We also had, and I think I said this at the time, is that because the county, essentially, we have liability for when you take over a park, and for example, a child fell out of a swing, a brand new swing set, and she was placed in it upside down improperly by the parents, broke her teeth, and they sued us. So we've got to make sure that all of our equipment is really safe for kids, and it's also that any kind of liability that's there has to be addressed. So, and there's also issues like ADA. So we had a consultant go through. We're just going to make a few moderate changes to make it ADA compliant, and a couple of safety issues, and it'll be right up to par, A1, perfect.
And there'll be pictures on which way to put your child?
Yeah, that's what we should do. Well, one of those things, so happens. The planned Princeton's currently, it's actually in phase 2. It's the background studies. The consultants have prepared an existing conditions report that includes reviews of the following: land use and urban design, fishing boats and visitor serving needs, environmental resources, natural hazards, and shoreline erosion. And by the way, shoreline erosion, as talking to your chair, Lisa Ketchum, ahead of time, is that the Coastal Commission has a document about coastal erosion or sea level rise. Actually, those of you who went, I know, Lisa, you went to the recent seminar that Dave Pine put on, and actually we're thinking about doing something on the coast side as well. The consultant that he had, I wish I got his book now, actually. He indicates that sea level is going to go by about 3 feet, and the Coastal Commission has this paper about sea level rise. So we have some comments that actually Steve Monowitz wrote for both Dave and I. Dave Pine and I both read through it, and frankly, it's pretty technical. But I think his comments were really very thoughtful, and we'll make sure that I send them to all of you so you get to see them as well. It's a very technical. That is the Coastal Commission's document. It's very technical, and Steve Monowitz's response is pretty technical as well. But I think it's written in a way that we can all understand. Because if I can understand it, I'm sure that all of you will be able to understand it as well. Besides the shoreline erosion, there's the circulation and parking, coastal access and infrastructures, public services and facilities. One of the things I would hope that would come out of, we have a lot of paper streets there that actually run down to the ocean. I'd like to see the county put some additional resources into those streets so that they're much more accessible to the public, and that they could be really, I think, really add to the community. So the TAC, I guess that's the Technical Advisory Committee, they're going to have a final review of the document before it's reviewed by the steering committee. And after our steering committee meetings, we will release the report to the public, which will, of course, include the Midcoast Community Council. And I believe that's going to be on March 12th of this year at a regularly scheduled meeting. Another thing we did recently, actually on a law enforcement side, is that there's a new state law, and it was a project that was really started by Congresswoman Jackie Spear about human trafficking. Actually, there's a person that wrote a book about human trafficking. We always think about, human trafficking happens in Eastern Europe or Africa or someplace in Asia. It doesn't happen here. It does. So human trafficking does in fact happen. So the new state law requires all places like bars, restaurants, massage parlors to put a poster like this that talks about human trafficking and gives phone numbers and resources to contact. And again, by the way, of all the, something like 80% of all the human trafficking are in fact involved in sex trade. And it's forced sex trade, and about 20% are in labor. And I think you read about that periodically. But, again, you think, these are people from some other country. 80% are U.S. citizens. That means they're our sons and daughters. So it's a serious issue, and we are determined to do everything we can in San Mateo County to make sure that it doesn't thrive and that it's stamped out. We have had some cases of human trafficking in South San Francisco and some other parts of the county as well. And the DA actually, when we did this press conference, really talked about this, talked about the cases that he had prosecuted. The others, we did a press conference on Martins Beach, and we were talking about that briefly. I've been pretty adamant saying that there should be public access, and our state senator has a proposal to go to the State Lands Commission to ask that the State Lands Commission be in negotiation with the owner to purchase the road so that the public has access to that beach. And after a period of time, the legislation says after a period of about a year of negotiations, if that isn't effective, that he would recommend, or the legislation would recommend, a process of eminent domain. Now, I don't know if that'll pass, But it's just an example of a continuing efforts on our part, both the county and the state, to restore public access to that beach. It is, I think, a magical part of the coast, and we want to make sure that people have access to it. I guess the other thing that might interest people has to do with Seton Hospital. The Seton is, we did pass a Measure A, talked about helping Seton Hospital, and actually all hospitals, making sure that they are seismically safe. And my interest was twofold. I grew up in Daly City. When I was a police officer, the first officer killed in the line of duty went to Seton Hospital. I remember being there. I took a lot of people to the emergency room there. So I grew up in Daly City. I think having a hospital in that north end is really important. And Seton Coastside, of course, is here. And it's really a facility for us on the coast. I don't, so in any case, what's happening is we're in negotiations with, talking to Seton, and they've retained a company called Houlihan Lokey to sell the whole chain. It's about 6 hospitals that are really on the market, and we would hope that they would sell, if it is sold, well, I'm sure it will be sold, that it be sold to a nonprofit, and that they will continue providing the kind of service that Seton currently provides. One of the things I have to say about the Daughters of Charity, they really believe in their mission. They do more charity care than any hospital in the county, or in fact in the area, as far as I know. And that's one of the reasons they're losing so much money, is that they have charity care. I don't know if Seton Hospital or what's going to happen, but we're in negotiations, and we're looking very carefully at our part, because we did talk about helping them for a period of 10 years. But and unfortunately, Seton Hospital itself could survive, but the problem is that the other 5 hospitals are all losing lots of money, and so the chain is not doing very well. And it's not likely that you could have a standalone hospital in this day and age. It just isn't going to happen. So somebody is going to end up buying it. On the coast side, what I think is, I actually don't think we're going to keep an emergency room. I would prefer, and I think what we will probably do is have an urgent care center. And the county's we're probably going to have to put money into it. We're going to have to find out who ends up buying Seton Coastside and is working out some kind of a deal. We actually have some interest in, or people that are interested in taking over some parts of the Daughters of Charity hospitals, and Seton Coastside probably is not the most desirable, because it is essentially long-term care, skilled nursing. There are people who live there till the end of their days, and they are almost all Medi-Cal, and there's not a lot of reimbursement. So, but we do have one of the things that the county did is we have privatized the facility that was called Burlingame Health Center, and we privatized it to a company called Brias. And Brias we actually have made about $4 million a year, because of, we don't have our legacy cost any longer, and they seem to be, actually it's unionized too, so it's not as if it's a non-union. It was unionized, and they seem to have run a better facility than we ever ran it. Lo and behold, somebody could do something better than the government. So we're talking to them about potentially taking over the skilled nursing on the coast side, and we'll figure out something to make sure that there is if there isn't, actually calling coastside an emergency room, it's not like a trauma center, but I think what we really need over here is an urgent care center. So that gives you kind of a thumbnail sketch. We'll keep you advised, because I know people on the coast side are interested in this, and we don't want to see the same thing happen when Coastside Clinic closed as well. So I think that's kind of it.
Anybody have questions for Supervisor? Bill?
So on the last, Bill Key on West Beach. On your last note there about Seton
and just the whole state of medical care on the coast side. I mean, it threw a lot of people for a loop when they saw that going up for sale. But then something that's probably lesser known, I know a few people in here know, is that we've also lost our MRC, our medical first alert people. They've kind of decided to call it quits as well. So
Yeah.
we've got nothing now in case of a natural disaster. So, I mean, we're really hitting the bottom when it comes to emergency medical facilities out there. Would you care to address, like, what could be done about that, or do you have any ideas going forward, how we can
Well-
resurrect it?
I hate to dump it on Nick, and I won't. But one of the things that we did do, we tried to get different agencies to pick that medical emergency corps up. We weren't really successful in being able to do that, but we have sort of a different idea of having a different model, of essentially having a list of all those people. So one of the things that we start talking to, like, our public health doctors, and they say, wait a second, if we had a major emergency, and, we know where all the doctors are at, we could get them. So, well, that's fine, but we want to know who they are and see if we can come up with an organization, sort of an expanded CERT, and have, the knowledge of who those people are and how we could make contact with them. And that's kind of the model that we're looking at right now. We also have that, well, I think that's probably it for now. That's as good as we've been able to do for now.
Is Nick gonna be the point guy for that kind of stuff?
Well, I'm not sure that he knows it yet.
Okay.
But,
No, I actually have a little information about that. I don't know if this is the right time to discuss it.
Well, so, does anybody else, before we get to you, does anybody else have questions for the supervisor?
Yes, I did. Don, the vision for the Princeton plan has been completed. I believe I read something. Is it officially completed, or maybe you can?
It's posted on our website. It was published in October.
Visioning. Right. So, okay.
I'm going to talk about that later, because I'll
Okay.
be going to I'm going to be a rep on
Never mind.
I will let Lisa is actually probably is a better source of that, but it's not really completed yet, no.
Okay, so, Nick, you want to introduce yourself and,
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me in. A little introduction tonight. My name is Nick Gattuso, and I am the new co-site coordinator for the Sheriff's Office of Emergency Services. I have a little bit of laryngitis, so you'll have to forgive me. This is a brand-new position. There are 3 district coordinators on the Bay side and a supervisory district coordinator, who's my supervisor. But there's never been anybody dedicated to the coast side, and that has changed now. My office is at the Half Moon Bay substation, and that's where I come every day for work. I'm a retired police captain. I actually started as a dispatcher with the sheriff's office, a Spanish speaker, lived in Spain for a few years when I was younger. So I don't know if anybody got the SMC alert for the siren test in English and Spanish. That was one of my little first-time projects. I think that's the first time that's happened. So anyway, the Office of Emergency Services has decided that the coast side needs to have its own representative. So my area of responsibility runs from the Santa Cruz County border to this side of the tunnels and west to Skyline. So I'm involved with Pescadero, obviously up here. The city of Half Moon Bay pays a portion of my salary, as does the Silicon Valley Foundation, some Measure A funds, and of course the sheriff's office. So I'm working on behalf of everybody on the coast side. And what I'm really looking to do more than anything else is get some of the very interested emergency response groups, both public and private, that already exist, a little more united, and get some of the CERT teams to get their training up to speed, and also to work together with the CERT teams from other parts of the coast side. We have kind of sort of isolated communities in a way, and I'm going to try to help fix that if I can by doing some relationship building with various groups. I'm involved with several other county-wide projects like the Emergency Drought Plan for the county and the Business and Government Resiliency Coalition that I'm working with, which is another county-wide effort. But primarily I'm focused on the coast. And at the KEEP meeting the other day, the MRC, the Medical Reserve Corps, did announce that they were folding their 501(c), I believe it is, for a variety of reasons. But my office is already working on an alternate plan to divide the coast into sectors and have groups of medical personnel and CERT volunteers working together in case we do need a medical response. There is a medical trailer that MRC was using that's filled with trauma room type equipment. There are quite a few emergency medical bags that the county owns that have to be reassigned to different medical personnel. So I'll be trying to recruit some folks up and down the coast to participate in that. That was the kind of the very fresh, as of yesterday, information that we were talking about.
Thanks.
At our office. One of the things I'll be doing up here, which I know is a great concern, is the tsunami evacuation routes and sites. And after I got an email from Lisa the other day asking me a couple of questions about how it's set up right now, and being that I'm brand new at this, I decided the best way I could do it was to go see for myself. So I printed up maps of all the communities north of Half Moon Bay and got my little red pen and got in my car and started at the north end and just drove up and down as many of the little side streets and things as I could and marked down the locations and the directions of all the signs. I'm trying to locate an original map that shows where these signs were supposedly installed originally and what the routes are. And I'm finding that to be difficult. The person who was responsible for it is long retired, and I'm having a hard time tracking it down, but I'm not giving up. And even if we can't find that original map, we're planning on redoing it. And as Lisa pointed out, there are a couple of confusing, to say the least, and contradictory signs out there. You know, the pamphlet that we have, that we give out to everybody, says that please try to go on foot if you possibly can. But most of the signs are geared towards people who are leaving in cars. And as you said, a lot of the signs, I finally figured this out, the ones south of Half Moon Bay point north, and the ones north of Half Moon Bay point south, and they all point up 92. Now,
Answer for speech.
so you come out of the harbor, which is one of the places that would be the most impacted by any sort of tsunami, and you're supposed to turn right and go downhill to the lowest possible point where the wave is most likely to get you. So we need to work on these things, and I'm planning on tackling that head on and making sure that it makes a little more sense. Mostly it's education, like anything else. Very, very few communities on our coast will be affected by any sort of a tsunami. And we plan, and our inundation zone maps are based on a 40-foot tsunami surge, which is a once-in-a-millennium event. The smaller ones can certainly cause plenty of damage, especially to areas that are right at sea level, like in the harbor and some of the communities that are very low. But if you're anywhere east of Highway 1, with a couple of very few exceptions, any sort of a normal tsunami that we might get is not going to affect you. But we still have to plan for the worst possible case. We're working on this 40-foot event, which is cataclysmic and extremely unlikely, but that's still what we're using as our basis. So I'll be working on that as well among my other projects. I'm working with the Pescadero Municipal Advisory Committee, help them found their safety committee. We've had a couple of meetings so far discussing flooding and some of the issues that they're concerned with down there. So thank you very much for having me. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'll pass out a few of my cards. I'll just put a stack here, and you can pass them down if you like. And please feel free to call me, email me with any questions, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Thanks for coming tonight.
It's my pleasure. Any questions, or other than, anything super detailed about the plans?
I have just one
Sure.
quick question. So, I was in Oregon a couple weeks back, and I happened to meet a gent who's a fireman over here in Half Moon Bay. And anyway, we were chatting, and he said one of the things that he thinks about is why there are some areas in the coastal community that don't have there's no stop signs at all. Do you know what I mean? There's an intersection with no stop signs. And I can't tell you exactly which one he was referring to, but he told me there was one particular intersection where they've had 2 or 3 accidents in the exact same intersection. And he said, I don't know what it takes to get a stop sign put in there, but isn't it less expensive than having all of us come out and treat the victims and everything else? So are you getting input from, the emergency responders to those types of situations in terms of the overall plan?
Sure. So far, the only community that I've dealt with, and again, I only started in December and only started coming out here in January, hasn't really dealt too much with traffic issues, except for Pescadero, because they're very concerned about the bicycle races and the charity events where people come in and, run the stop signs that are already there, don't stop at them, speed and go on the wrong side of the road and those kind of issues. So a CHP captain is part of our safety committee in Pescadero to discuss traffic-related issues. So if you were interested in getting some sort of a safety committee going through this group, then that would be somebody we would invite to specifically address those kind of traffic issues. My area so far is mostly disaster preparedness, writing emergency operation plans, helping communities get ready for disasters. It hasn't been very traffic focused yet, but that doesn't mean that that can't be part of what we look at together.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Thanks again. So the next item on the agenda is public comment. Does anyone have, you may speak up to 3 minutes on any item not on the agenda. Anybody? Leonard.
In case anybody is planning on going to the next Harbor Commission meeting that's on the coast side, they alternate back and forth between here and South City. They've been booted out of Comfort Inn, and their next meeting is going to be at was it Seacrest? What's the name of that school? There's
I believe it is Seacrest.
a private school in Half Moon Bay on Arnold Way. And hopefully they will have come up with a better meeting location after that and change it again, but the next coastside meeting will be there.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, the next, okay, do any council members have public announcements? No? Public comment is closed. Are there any requested changes to the agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Right?
Thank you. So the first item on our regular agenda is informational presentation it's on Child and Adolescent Hotline and Prevention Program. Nargis Gillen?
Hi everyone, my name is Nargis Dillon and I'm a therapist and I'm the program coordinator for Star Vista's Child and Adolescent Hotline and Prevention Program. And I heard a lot of Measure A folks tonight. We're also a Measure A program, so we just started in November. And we are kind of going around to different meetings and trying to reach out to as many communities as possible around San Mateo County. What we're doing is we have a 24/7 hotline going, and we're available by phone, by text, or by email to anyone within the county who has any concern regarding any child ages 0 to 18. So it's pretty broad in terms of what kinds of stuff we're prepared to deal with. And the hope of the hotline, and when it was designed, is to facilitate early identification of some issues that are happening with children and youth in the county, support the community more, and also increase access to resources. The county actually has a lot of resources already, but a lot of them are unknown or underutilized, and our hope is to be able to kind of plug the right people into the right resources. Some of the examples of the kinds of calls we've been getting is from like educators and caregivers who call regarding behavioral issues, and they sometimes just want to consult or kind of flesh out ideas or kind of just talk to someone. You don't have to have a specific question. You could just call to talk to someone on the phone or text to get something off your mind. But we are also prepared to do screenings on the phone, provide short-term therapy if it's needed, or make a referral depending on what the needs are. The needs could be mental health related, but they could also be like educational concerns, behavioral concerns, even like developmental questions if somebody is kind of not sure if their child is acting age appropriately and they're not sure how to assess that or at what point to take action. We can a lot of times either do a screening on the phone, or we actually have the ability to come out to their home or go out to the kids' school and screen them in person if it seems like the kind of thing we can't figure out on the phone. The long-term success is a big part that was written into this program, and in order to kind of assure that this is not just the one-time call that people are making, we are providing follow-ups with all the families or all the people that call in to make sure they accessed some sort of resource, and if they weren't able to do that, we're kind of checking in with them about what were the barriers to access in order to be able to then provide them with a more fitting referral. So for example, they say, the people you send me to have a 6-month waiting list. Hopefully we would know that and we would let them know ahead of time, but if that's the case, we can then say, okay, you can go here for now, or we'll come out and we'll provide the service meanwhile while you're waiting for the more long-term services to kick in. And I think that's going to be a big part of making sure that people aren't falling through the cracks, which was the reason the hotline was put in place, was to make sure that people feel supported and not just kind of told to go somewhere without any kind of guidance. A big part of the hotline is also that we have access to a language interpretation line, so people can call. The line has like 200 languages, so I can't really think of any language that's not covered, but I'm sure one day it'll come up. But for now, people can call and just say the language they need, and we'll dial in an interpreter, and we'll do a 3-way conferencing with them that way, so we can help out people who are from communities that don't usually get services in our county. I brought a ton of flyers, info cards, and fact sheets. They're all outside by the sign-in sheet. If any questions come up, or if you guys want us to go anywhere, make a presentation, send you stuff, we can always do that. You can call, email, or text the hotline. The number is 650-567-KIDS, so it's kind of easy to remember, 567-KIDS. And other than the hotline, there's another small component to the funding we received at Star Vista through Measure A, and that's a school-based program that serves kids K-6 with school adjustment issues, and it's called the Lucky Kids Club. Currently, it's just started in South County, but next year we are going to be out here, and we're working with the Cabrillo School District. It's kind of more of a partnership between us and the schools. Members of the community can't really do much to refer to that right now, but we just kind of want people to be aware that that's also going to be in existence. And if you call us and your kid happens to go to that school, we can potentially hook him up with that resource as well, which is a play-based intervention that aims to raise kids' self-esteem and things like that. I think that's it for kind of the details of the hotline, but I'm able to answer any questions that people might have that might be a little more specific.
Any council members? Laura?
Yeah, I'm curious to know what kind of advertising that you're doing either with the schools or the counselors currently. In conjunction with that question is, do you see a lot of people using your services from the coast?
Just in the past couple weeks, we've had some callers from the coast side, but every month we're basically analyzing who's calling. We ask people for their zip codes when they call. We're trying to figure out what are the pockets where people aren't accessing our resources, and then having very focused efforts in reaching out to those areas, which is kind of what made me get in touch with Lisa. Actually, I was looking for guidance on how to better reach out to the coast side community, and I'm very open to any ideas you might have on how to better reach out to them. And in regards to the schools, we're actually working with the County Office of Ed, and they have kind of sent our information to all the schools, and we are getting a lot of calls from schools specifically. And we mailed letters to all the schools, and we have contacted all the guidance advisors and principals and things like that by email as well.
I would really, if I were in your position, I would really hammer on those counselors. And the reason I say that is I've seen many times where children will come in. It's not uncommon for adolescents to say, oh, they're going to kill themselves because their parents said they can't go out for the weekend or whatever. There's no distinction made because, they have to, so then they end up being hospitalized. So, I mean, to have a service such as yours that could do almost an evaluation, at least over the phone, I could see a big savings for everyone.
Definitely, we actually had a guidance advisor call the other day with a kid who was threatening self-harm, and she wanted to know at what point does she need to escalate it to the next level, and we were able to kind of consult on the phone. I think it was helpful, because you're right, sometimes things do get escalated when they don't need to, but other times things are serious, and it's helpful to kind of be able to talk it out with someone else and not have to make the decision by yourself in the moment.
Yeah, for just the parents in the community,
Yeah.
anybody who has adolescent or middle school.
And actually, like,
who wants to commit suicide themselves.
kids are allowed to call themselves as well. We're not really seeing it yet, but in general, it doesn't have to be the adult that initiates the call. A child can call for themselves, and if they want to talk to someone or if they need a resource, we are able to kind of talk to them as well.
Is this a 24/7?
It is a 24/7 service. I would say the email is not as 24/7, so if someone really needs to talk to someone, they should call the line. But if not, people get back to them the next morning. It's manned by clinicians during business hours, and outside of business hours, it rolls over to the Service the Crisis Center, and a lot of times they're able to handle those calls, or they will kind of take some notes for us, and we'll call the caller back the next day.
Okay, great, sorry.
That's okay, I was just curious to know, will you have a write-up in the paper, the Half Moon Bay Review?
No, how would we get into that? We would like that.
Oh, okay. Ms. Chair, would you?
I'll call the reporter and make a suggestion and give them your
Thank you.
input. How about that?
Okay.
Thank you, we really appreciate that. Yeah, we've been posting on the patch websites, just as a way for people who check those websites to be visible. We're trying to post at all the libraries and things like that, in order to get the word out, but I really appreciate that.
If you send a review press release, it's more likely to get printed and tagged.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Do the wording. Do the wording. Yeah, and the flyer that she spoke of is posted on there's a link to it on the meeting post on our website, midcoastcommunitycouncil.org. For this meeting, you'll see the flyer there. It has the number and the contact info and that, if you're watching on TV.
Can I just
5, 6, 7 kids.
Just a quick comment besides this program. We actually, with my office and Supervisor Tessier, we did this thing called Beyond Newtown. And we have a team of people from the Office of Education as well as all the school districts to have a sharing of information. Because, there's a lot of prohibitions about sharing law enforcement, school, mental health records. But we've figured out a way to legally share that information for whenever there is a crisis. So we actually are developing a crisis response team, essentially because of some of the tragedies that have happened in other parts of the country, and especially Sandy Hook. The other thing that we are doing is that we are actually funding another program to recognize with early adolescents the beginning of bipolar and schizophrenic disorder as well. And apparently, what experts tell us is if you can identify a teen when the first episodes occur, you can work with the family, medication, counseling, and you can avoid some of the disastrous things that happen to people later on when with untreated schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. They end up not doing very well. But if you can identify that at an early age, there are some pretty good results that we see. And so we're doing a lot of funding for mental health in schools as well as this program as well.
Anyone else have questions?
I just had one more comment.
Yeah.
What just came into my mind, because all it takes is a couple of students to have used the line, found it useful, and it will spread like wildfire. And you might even look at working with the counselors on doing a mock call so people can get a sense of what they'll find when they're on the other end, whatever. But I just see this as so important, especially at the high school, just really, really needed. So the more you can get the word out, the better.
Yeah, that would definitely make the experience less intimidating.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the texting is actually really geared toward the kids or teens or people who are not in a space where they can safely talk, they can still text us, and that way they can still get information and get some support without having the opportunity or the courage to make a phone call. I think it's really hard to call people you don't know.
Yeah, yes. Will they let you come and speak at the school or do something like that?
We've been at some schools that have invited us, and we're kind of trying to do that more and more.
You're trying to get invitations? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we sent a thing out saying, could you please invite us to come and speak at your school? Yeah, so we're using any kind of contact that we have in order to spread the word as much as we can.
Were you able to do a presentation for Half Moon Bay High School?
We have not been out here yet.
They have not invited you
We
yet?
have not invited us.
Maybe we can grease the
Maybe
wheels.
we can,
Do you have a card? Are those out on the?
Yes, you can email the hotline and it would come out, and I can pass out my personal business card as well.
Okay.
But I'll be checking the hotline email myself, so.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much for coming.
Oh, I think
Of course.
Deb had a question.
I did want to ask a question here, unfortunately. The question I have is, what are you currently doing right now to have to do with drugs? Kids that are known to be on drugs or on drugs. Is there a hotline for that, or someone can call you, or is that something?
We have had parents call us in regards to, like, if they're concerned about their child's substance use, and we're able to kind of assess the situation and see if it's at a level where there's an immediate kind of medical attention needed, or some sort of ongoing mental health services would be helpful. And there are services within the county that do provide specifically adolescent substance abuse programs, and they have groups as well as individual or family treatments, and we're able to refer people to those programs in order to get the appropriate services. And we always tell people, if they have a pediatrician, that's also a great place to start if they're concerned about certain kinds of substance use and they think it might have affected the health of their child.
Thank you.
All right, so item 4B on the agenda is the traffic hazard on Prospect Way in Princeton. Specifically, parking at the narrow mid-block section obstructs the eastbound travel lane. In other words, space for one car to park requires every single eastbound car on this busy through street to cross into the opposing traffic lane in order to get past. This is the third time we've had this on the agenda, and we have now replies from Public Works acknowledging that this is indeed the situation, and suggesting that we fill out the form to request the no parking designation. So basically, first, does anyone want to comment from the public? I'll open public comment. Does anyone here want to speak on this? No? Okay, so what I would like to do is ask for a motion on the table, and then if anyone wants to speak to this just one time, and we go to a vote because we have already discussed it before. What I would suggest is that we approve submittal of traffic control request to DPW for no parking zone at the narrow 35-foot-long mid-block section on the south side of Prospect in Princeton. If you like that motion, you can say, "I so move."
May I comment?
And then we can discuss it.
I so move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Everybody should probably, yes, you may speak.
I'm confused here, but I'm happy to speak as usual.
Okay.
I think that before, we went in the wrong direction. Somehow I got lost in the path about taking care of the business owners. And after, what I had been trying to communicate was about the safety, and I think that's two very different things. And the safety issue, and it's very hard for me to explain this, but if you're out here, your car's out far from the curb, and it takes off, and cars are coming around the corner here, this guy's going into your lane, and you're turning in here. And I don't know if people see that. I had the experience, and I thought we were gonna crash into the person next to us. And does everyone understand what's actually physically happening there? Okay, so to me, that's what needs to be focused on, because it's not an issue of parking space, it's an issue of some real live close calls. It's a safety hazard, because you've got somebody pulling into the opposite lane of traffic. So I would support the motion.
And just to be clear, this is a request for them to actually look into it. I mean, they still have to do their own separate investigating before they actually do what it is that's being requested of them.
DPW says that they need an application from us, and then they will proceed with the process to designate that. And basically, they send a notice out to the surrounding property
Right.
owners, and they go through their process.
So it's a
But
ball in
They
motion.
won't start the process unless we submit the application.
Okay.
It comes to the board for, what's the, for
Yeah.
foundation.
Mhm.
Because it goes into the county ordinance code.
Does anyone else have a point to make on that?
Yeah, so I basically echo what Laura just said. I feel that really the responsibility is DPW, whoever built that sidewalk job, you know. I'm very sympathetic to the parking situation for the businesses and for the visitors. Unfortunately, you know, it's just not a safe parking spot for people to say that it should remain. So I support the motion, and hopefully, maybe someday they can jackhammer it out and just move it back to the way it was and solve the problem. And who knows?
Is this an application that anybody can fill out, or it has to be a specific body?
Any person could fill out this application, but I think it might have more impact if it came from the council, and that's what I'm proposing. Okay.
Like with Sunshine Valley Road, we were dealing with the law enforcement people. So why in this instance are we submitting a request as the council?
The process, oh, that was for Donna, sorry.
Well, I'm not sure, what was the Sunshine Valley Road speeding?
There was a speeding issue.
Well, because that is the prima facie speed limit is 25 in residential, so that's why you were asking them to enforce it. This
Okay.
is different. This is, this have a no parking zone so that the sheriff's office can cite the vehicle for parking there. Has to be painted red, has to be put down SMSO,
Oh,
and
I
it has
see.
to go into the ordinance code as a violation.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we're not asking them to ticket people, we're asking them to designate it as a no parking zone.
Right. I
Once
got
they
it.
do that, and somebody
Yeah.
parks there, then they can be ticketed.
Mhm.
All right, anybody else want to speak before we vote? All right. The motion was to authorize the chair to submit the traffic control request to DPW for no parking zone at the 35-foot long mid-block section on the south side of Prospect in Princeton. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 6-1.
Did you get that motion, Chris? Wow.
So item 4C is Barbara's Fish Trap Restaurant use permit renewal and modification.
You know,
So-
are they here? Oh, okay. I met them downstairs, they were worried about being on time.
To allow construction of 270 square foot kitchen area, move takeout window from street to east side of the building, construct 250 square foot patio for eating and waiting, and a beach or access ramp from the patio. The desired outcome for this agenda item is to approve permit application comments from the MCC to the project planner. And the applicant is here tonight, but first I would like to just give an overview of the process for approval of planning permit application. I think this is the first, we have new members here, it's the first time we've done this. So this application is for a use permit renewal. Oh, no, I was going to do an overview. Back up. Okay, so first, when somebody wants to get a planning permit, they go and they submit an application. When the planning department decides the application is complete, everything's there, then they send a referral. They send the application and the plans out to agencies who would be interested to comment, like the fire department or Department of Public Works, whatever is appropriate, and the Midcoast Council receives that as well. And this would cover any use permit renewal, or a coastal development permit. We get these early referrals at this first stage. And this is before a staff report has been written or anything like that. It's an opportunity to get informal comments to the planner that might then be included in the staff report or not, whatever, or ask questions. So the next step then is, if this is residential permit application, it would go to the Coastside Design Review Committee. Other areas of the coast side have design review, but that's done by county staff. Then after that, if it's a large enough project that requires environmental review, those studies are done. I hope I'm getting this all right. And then the planner will write the staff report, and then that is to the decision maker. In this case, this project will go to the zoning hearing officer. Sometimes if it's a larger project, it'll start going directly to the planning commission, and then once the decision maker rules on, attaches conditions or not, then it could be appealed. Like, for example, if it was decided by the zoning hearing officer, it could be appealed to the planning commission, or even the board of supervisors, or in certain cases, it could be appealed to the coastal commission. So that's a general flow, and so you have, like, when it goes to the zoning hearing officer, there's a public hearing. So there's different opportunities to comment along the way. So, but this one, these early referrals is an opportunity that the Midcoast Council has, because we get these. This particular project is unique in that the restaurant is, as I understand it, where there was used to be a pier, and it itself is in the coastal zone. The coastal commission is responsible for issuing this coastal development permit. The county is responsible to issue the use permit renewal and any modification to that use permit. That would happen first, and then the then the coastal development permit would be applied for directly to the coastal commission. So it's a two-step process, and it's also the same process that the La Costanera restaurant is under. So that's a little different in this case. So basically, our comments to the county planner are just for the use permit renewal and its modifications, but you kind of have to get your comments in at that stage, I think, to make sure they'll get in at the later stage of the coastal commission. So I had also posted with the plans that I received on the website. I had also posted a short document which quoted from the zoning district that the restaurant is in, the Coastside Commercial, which references the local coastal program, and the quote was about visual resources. Well, I can't find it right at the moment, so this is a good time for the applicant, if you'd like to come up and speak on your project.
My name is Barry McAdoo. I'm representing Melody Matson, who's the owner of the Barber's Fish Shop.
What's your name again, sir?
My name is Barry McAdoo,
Barry.
and I did this design for this project. I'm not sure what exactly you have. You have a set of the design drawings, I assume?
Whatever you gave the planner, she said that's what she sent me. It's...
Right, the reduced version.
Yeah, we just got the reduced version.
All right. Well, the idea behind the project is in the fish traps business is quite substantial, dependent on takeout food. Now, for the last number of years, the county has asked the owners if there's anything they can do to alleviate the problem of the traffic on the sidewalk, to move that. So with that in mind, the restaurant itself is a well-run machine, family machine that is bursting at the seams. So to get a little extra square footage in the takeout kitchen, we turned it 90 degrees facing the harbor, if you will, as you imagine Barber's Fish Trap, and thus creating a patio which will allow the patrons to stand off the sidewalk while they're waiting and ordering their food. Now, the idea that as this occurred was maybe it would be nice for those people to be able to move down the beach and maybe sit on some steps or some rocks on the beach. So that's what we presented, and we hope that this was a scheme that would be, acceptable to whoever is judging the scheme. I don't know if you're aware, but we've received a letter since our application. Our application was made on the 1st of March, And we've received a letter the 3rd of February from the planning, and I assume that you have no idea of this letter, do you? So this is where I feel that these, we come to these hearings, but there's a whole thing going on with the planning department that you are not aware of, and I don't know whether I should explain it to you or not.
Well, I have to admit, being curious.
Okay.
Now, yes.
Well, what they've asked us to do on our application is, in one area is the patio, which is a 270 square foot patio. They're saying that if we create that patio, it's possible that we will have to supply an ADA accessible ramp to the beach with possibly a lift on it. Now there's already access to the beach, and we feel we were just enhancing that access by what we were doing with these steps to the beach. But they've come back and said that this would be a requirement. And we've responded, or we are responding, that if this is the case, then we would just not provide access to the beach and just put a handrail around that patio, and that would answer that question, but not really be a nice aspect of the project. It would just be solving some technical issue. The other more important one that they gave us was that, and I'll read it to you, which was, in keeping with the process, they've given us a checklist with public works, the building section, geotechnical section, and a couple of other comments. And they want a history regarding the project and all that. There's been quite a number of remodels over the years to this fish trap, so there's quite a bit of information available. So, and then the one thing that the one that is a really problem for us is, in keeping with the process we've established for the distillery, which is a restaurant in Moss Beach, I suggest the following conditions for the renewal of the use permit and associated improvements to the building. And they're asking 5 items: a detailed structural analysis of the building and foundation, including decks; geological study of the site, including subsurface exploration; performance and repairs recommended by either geologist or geotechnical engineer and structural engineer; a history of the building, including past changes and repairs; annual inspections of the structure and the adjacent bluffs and beach by registered professionals. Now, these 5 items we find a little harsh and a little, we will provide geotechnical and structural engineers for the 200 square foot addition, but to request us to give a detailed structural analysis of the whole building and a geotechnical study of the site, including the subsurface exploration. And because this addition is literally less than 10% of the actual building. So these are the 2 areas that we are addressing right now with the planning department, and we're here tonight to hope that you will see some value in this project and approve it, and maybe work with us in helping move it to the next step.
That's really helpful that you brought us this information that we didn't know anything about.
I've been working with the county for 35 years. I understand how things don't connect.
I found the quote that I was looking for earlier. Basically, it was just about the color of the outside of the building is all. That the LCP, our local coastal program, requires in Princeton, commercial development, employ natural or sea colors.
Yeah.
And that was actually the only point I was going to put forward tonight, but other council members may have, and this is new information too, but I personally, I realize it's a very popular visitor serving place, and it sounds like a good idea, what you had proposed.
Well, yes, and our idea with the color design was to keep what Barbara's has been for 30-something years, and maintain that color scheme. That's all we presented. This is, do you want to say something?
Hi, I'm Melody Matson.
Hi.
The question I had was, what question did you have about the color of the fish trap, or somebody had
Oh, basically, the local coastal program is, one of the main purposes of the Midcoast Community Council is to uphold this program. I mean, these are policies that the community has adopted, and they are important. And what has happened is that, the color that the natural sea colors that are required for projects in that zoning district is obviously it's for new buildings. Someone could come back later and change the color of their building, and in your case, that's what happened long ago or whatever. But the problem is that you're in a very exposed position, and people see that, and they think it's okay, and then it becomes a de facto abandonment of the LCP. If the Harbor District was going to paint their buildings at the end of the pier, they were going to repaint them, and they looked at your building and thought, well, let's go with yellow, let's go with this. And I said, because the harbor master just moved down from Bellingham, Washington, I said, we have these muted earth tone color scheme here in the Midcoast, and he painted them blue. They're not something that architecturally you would want to call out. And then most recently there was a conversion, a project that was approved for the deli just down the street from you, and we did not comment on it. It was a simple interior conversion and a deck out front for the deli, but what I didn't think of is that the design review officer in the county said, because they call it terracotta, but it's pretty close to orange, and they said, well, that's okay, because down the street there's already this color, and so that's in the area, so it's okay. And so with just this, the whole LCP is just, that's my concern.
Many years ago, there was my mom went through a lot of channels for that color. And it was deemed nautical because it was the same color as crab. And we have the bookwork where she had gone through the whole process, and she went, there was a legal proceeding where she went to court, and it was deemed the color, a coastside color, because it was the color of crab.
Cooked crab.
Yes, cooked crab.
I don't remember who specifies that in the paperwork, but it was quite a process that she went through to get that color.
Well, that would be interesting documentation, and
And
if we decide to go, wherever the council decides to go with this, you may want to come up with that for a rebuttal or whatever, but
No
yeah,
problem.
that's interesting.
Okay.
So I've been hogging the airwaves here. If other people have questions for the applicants, that will happen first, and then we'll open public comment.
I knew about
and then, yeah. So just if you have questions.
Yeah. So it's interesting what you said about the ramp down to the beach, because when I looked at these plans and thought about where this is located, my first thought was, I think those stairs would look beautiful there. But my concern is that particular stretch of beach, and maybe other people in the room would be more knowledgeable about that. I believe that corner, that Capistrano corner there, is one of the, if not the most polluted area in the entire harbor. So every time I go by there and I see little kids playing in that sand, right next to the sign that says, warning, it always, makes me feel a little uncomfortable for those people. And now, these beautiful steps, everybody's going to be going down there to the most polluted place in the harbor. So if maybe it's a blessing in disguise, this ADA requirement that you don't put the steps down there. I mean, I don't know what the ramifications are if somebody gets,
Or the pollution gets cleaned up.
Well,
That'd be a good idea.
sure, I would love that. Yes, I'm all for cleaning up the pollution, but the reality right now is that's not the case, and these steps would just be funneling people right down to the most polluted spot. So that is a concern I had when I looked at these plans. Otherwise, it makes total sense to me to, you've been asked to get traffic off that sidewalk, and again, I go past that sidewalk all the time, and I'm often when I'm running or something, forced out into the street, which is great. I mean, I love bars. I've been there many times, you know. So moving around to the other side seems like a no-brainer to me, but I am concerned about increased amounts of people and children down on that sand where we know there's a lot of pollution. So I guess that wasn't really a question, but just putting that out there as you're considering whether to go forward.
I appreciate it.
Any other questions for the applicants? Dave?
I'd like to just say that I'm very familiar with the restaurant and the concerns. I'm wondering, I know that there's other restaurants in the coast side that have stairs down the beach that are not ADA, so I just find it, I think it would be a good idea to have the stairs. I do understand the concern.
Stairs would be ADA compliant, it's just that they would require a ramp or lift or possibly some other means. You know what I mean by a ramp instead of step?
Correct.
As well as the steps. The steps would be ADA compliant, but they were requiring an additional ramp or lift.
Okay, yeah, because I know that you're very limited space to work with there, so they're demanding two
There
separate.
is a natural sand ramp down there right now, which goes right parallel to the easement which the harbor has, that ramp that goes down there.
Yeah, it seems like, well, I just know that it would be very difficult to put a ramp in there, and you got the level coming up and down. But I do see it as a very beneficial.
Where our beach is above the mean high tide.
Okay.
So where we're talking about where our people would be going down, I mean, of course, people are gonna go down to the beach if they wanna go down to what the harbor owns. But what we're mainly concerned with is what we own, which is that area between the fish trap and the ramp that goes out to the pier. That small square, that's ours. That's what we're talking about, putting landscaping there, fixing that nice, so we still have the patio area would be smaller, and it would be almost a third of the beach area that we have between the two.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and if they don't want the steps and if they don't want the ramp, we're willing to put a glass or handrail around it so that we don't have any steps, we don't have any, and then people can still go down to the natural beach area from the sidewalk.
Right. Yeah, so the handrail would, because I know the area where the sidewalk is, it's very level, so if the handrail came up to maybe, let's say, approximately 10 feet from or 5 feet from you could easily kind of just walk down without steps and have access.
That's what there is now, is that there is access to the beach and people sit on the rocks and they sit on the beach or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I saw the plans and they look pretty good, and I have to say that I am fond of the color. So that's all I have to say.
My thoughts are that, number one, I thought it was really clever the way you laid this out, because yes, the crowds, well, it looks really good for your restaurant to see those crowds all collected in the front, but I think it'd be so much easier. So I think the layout is great. I think as far as the steps go, to me, you always want to have a building, it's my own design sense, which is worth nothing, but connected to the company area, the land. And so I think that idea of having the stairs is very positive. At the same time, I'm not sure, Lisa, somebody I was going to talk to about this project, the first thing they said was, well, who would want to go near that water? So there's clearly that sort of a thought here, because we spent so many...
Paddleboarders and kayakers, there's quite a number of people that...
Right, but it's just so we think of little kids, because we've spent so many years here investigating what the issue was. So that's foremost on our mind, that's all.
Is there any sign of it being erect?
No, from what I understand, one of the first ones is animals, and that's just coming into the groundwater. So that's not something...
Through that creek.
Yeah, that's gonna happen soon. But anyhow, what colors do you like? Do you like that color?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
It's the color I grew up
Oh, that's what you know?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I hear Lisa's point, and I don't know if anyone else has heard that, but this is our LCP, which is what is the only thing that gives us teeth for maintaining the beautiful area that we have here. So you sort of say, oh, in this case, we don't have to follow it, but in this case, we do. And so I think that's certainly something for discussion.
I think the color, when she first bought the building, it was red. It was red.
Oh, she bought
And
it
there
red.
was a discussion about it being the red, and then that's how it went from the red to their crab. So she she said, well, how about the crab color? And I don't remember if they discussed it being cooked crab or not cooked crab, but I remember it being crab. But she did go through the proper process to get that color at that time. But that was in '78.
Oh, really?
See, that's before the LCP.
So I don't know if that makes a difference or not.
That makes a big difference. That actually makes all the difference. Okay, so like, are we ready for public comment, or do you have more questions? Okay.
Yeah, so I'll make a statement in favor of what you're doing. I love the restaurant. I do think it's a good idea getting people off the sidewalk. I personally think the color is fine and is a pre-existing color for a long time. I don't mind leaving it the way it is. The question I had was more on the information you got back from the county. Did they give you any further information on what kind of geotechnical hazards they were looking for? Were they looking for the stability of the soil? Were they concerned about the earthquake zone, since it is in the earthquake fault zone?
What I've read to you is all we got, which stopped me in my tracks when I read, in keeping with the process we've established for the distillery. And I feel that that's a Seal Cove geotechnical hazard zone, and that building is on it. There's no comparison. So from that statement, then they went on to a detailed structure analysis of the building and foundation. We're prepared to do all that work on the foundation work that we're putting in, but to do an expansive one on the whole building, I think is too much they're asking. And a geotechnical study of the site, including subsurface exploration. These are just...
Yeah, I understand why they're asking. I understand why you don't want to do it. It would be very disruptive and expensive. My own personal comments on the steps, having looked at ramp access for a building where it would have been very difficult to meet ADA requirements, is don't fight it, don't do it.
Okay. Yes, that's we've written that in my comments to them.
Yeah,
We've said
just forget the steps.
If this is
would
an
be my
issue, we
advice.
put a handrail on this patio, which is a pity, because I think it enhances the project.
Yes, I do agree with you on that, but in the interest of getting something done.
Okay.
That's my
interested in
advice.
Getting something done, yes.
All right, are we ready to open public comment?
Okay, okay, maybe after I have a chance to ask, I mean, what happens now that you have reviewed it at this level? Where does it go from here?
Oh, well, we haven't really made
Well,
any
when you do that,
decision.
okay.
Okay,
Then-
basically, whether we submit comments or not, we've been invited to submit comments at this point. And as you can see, the planners are working even as we, whatever. So they'll eventually write a staff report, and there will be a hearing at the zoning hearing officer. And either what we say will be included or it won't. And so, yeah, the only role we play here is sort of advisory, and we can submit our comments, say, here's what we think. But we're not the decision makers. Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll open the public hearing. Does anyone want to speak on this issue? Bill?
Don't be shy.
Never mind. I wasn't going to say anything until I heard the discussion of color. And let's see, I've been out here now over 30 years, and it's kind of a trademark. You know, I'm also like the fact that I don't think the world should be bland and all blues and whites and grays on the coastside. I actually had a neighbor across the street from me when I was getting my house done, complained about the color. Everybody likes to complain about the colors out here. And he said, oh, all the houses should be white and blue. And I said, well, move to Greece. That's what they do there. And then I turned around and I said, well, you know, I think your house should be mostly blue because when I look out, I'm facing the ocean, it will blend in. But when he looks at me, he gets the hills and Moss Beach, so I said, mine should be green and brown, so it looks like the trees. I said, maybe we should paint the houses on one side, one color, and then I said, you know, it's the kind of thing you don't really want to start dictating what people have to do. You kind of know intuitively when you look at something, especially through the harbor. There's a lot of different businesses, a lot of different color motifs, and that's okay. You know, if you look at paintings of ocean spots, whether it's the Bahamas or in Europe and around the Mediterranean, I mean, they all seem to have at least one or two buildings that stand out, or the painters wouldn't be painting that scene. So it's not that major an issue. I'd hate to see the whole coastside the color of barbers, but I hate to also see it all one, you know, grayish blue too. So I support that. As far as everything else goes, I mean, I think it's really good because, as has already been said, opening up the street, which is fairly narrow and the traffic is right on top of it, is really a positive move, and I think that's great that you're doing that. Obviously, going down to the beach is huge problems, but it's too bad. But I think you already said it'll be another 50 years before that's cleaned up with everything. So anyway, I support the project, and I think the code is fine.
Anybody else?
I don't know what the point of submitting speakers still, so.
Can I, Leonard?
You didn't put what you were speaking on, Leonard.
He did.
Oh, he did?
Yes, here it is, 4C.
4C, I apologize.
Doing the best I can, Leonard.
You're doing fine.
Oh, yeah.
One thing that's not clear to me, and I can't read the plans, they're too faint to read.
I agree.
Does this increase the seating for dining? Okay.
Reduce it by one table and 4 tables.
Okay. The reason I ask that is because if it did, then the parking requirement would need to be reevaluated. So it's good that you don't have to reevaluate the parking. And I'm really happy to hear that this is being done to address the congestion on the sidewalk, which often spills out into the street and then impacts traffic going by. I don't think I'm going to say anything about colors, but somebody left who, rumor has it, had a tongue painted on the side of the house for a while.
What?
Never mind, I'll explain later. As far as the ADA, I think the ADA is the most badly implemented thing. Let me try this again. In terms of all the things that our county planning department implements, ADA is the one they do the worst. The text of the law says where feasible. And county planning treats ADA as an absolute requirement under all conditions, and it's not. They completely, absolutely ignore the two words where feasible. And from what I've heard tonight, this doesn't sound feasible. So, you know, deal with it. I think that the project as proposed is a good project, and they need to challenge the ADA requirement because it doesn't sound feasible. The one thing that I would ask is if they make it easier to access the beach, that they make sure that there's trash cans there that encourage people to use them instead of littering the beach. But other than that, I support it. I don't know what color crab is.
Buy one once in a while.
Okay, I had, one speaker had to leave, who wanted to speak on this comment, and I had talked to her on the phone earlier, and she supports your plans, but she also supports upholding the local coastal plan and the visual component regarding the exterior colors. So, if there's no one else from the audience, I'll close public comment, and council members, what would you like to do with this?
Well, one thing I would like to sort of weigh in on in terms of color is as it was highlighted here, to employ natural or sea colors. And that's a pretty broad definition. I mean, sunflowers are naturally yellow, right? So, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but I also think that if we're gonna talk about adhering to a very strict set of guidelines, I don't really look at that as being very clear. Sea colors, I mean, there's, you know, fish that are all colors of the rainbow. So, I mean, this is a little, it's difficult for me to kind of hone in on it needing to be an X, Y, or Z color when that's not spelled out. I mean, wood or shingle siding is quite clear, but natural or sea colors I don't think is. I think that allows for a lot of wiggle room. So that's kind of my feeling on that.
You bring up a good point. Now, Chris, you're on design review. Do you have any kind of colored chips or, you know, something that gives you some, kind of pulls this in a little as to what's considered?
No, because the COSI design review standards are guidelines. They're not code. And so the wriggle room there is that, you know, it should reflect the general nature of the community and the houses nearby, and that's the standard given. Now, we do ask for paint chips for every project, and, you know, we have had discussions about, you know, maybe a lighter tone of this, but that's as we're trying to interpret these subjective guidelines to kind of, you know, get it to fit in with the surrounding community and how it feels. And so in this situation, you know, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances that would make this completely different, especially from a new construction that would come before design review. One, the fact that it's a pre-existing structure, that this color was pre-approved, but it was pre-approved before, or it was approved before the LCP. But because I think Bill said, you know, it's kind of an icon in the community, therefore does it have its own kind of sphere of, it fits in with itself because it's always been there and it's like it is? Or, you know, does it not match what the Half Moon Bay Brewery's colors look like, or the Oceanos and the blue and white colors? So in that sense, if this came before design review, it would not be an issue because that building's already there and that color's already there. And so therefore, we would not be saying that you can't paint this new part of this structure the same color as the rest of your structure because it doesn't match the rest of the community if that structure's already there with that color. You know, that's what I've been told with design review. Somebody comes in, they have to give us paint chips, and we look at it. After a year, they can do whatever they want. Just see the Victorian over there in Murata. They can do whatever they want. So, you know, we have had discussions at design review of how much effort do we put into discussing paint chips when they can just change it, you know, a mere matter of months later.
I just wanted to clarify, when I talked to the planner, Summer Burleson, who was the planner for the deli down the street, I asked her, just for my edification, since it was too late on that one, if we had, and that was an existing building, would that have been a comment that we could have submitted and asked for compliance with the LCP on the color? And she said definitely yes. The fact that they will be getting, it's odd with the split use permit from the county, CDP from the Coastal Commission, the fact that they're getting a development permit triggers the opportunity for these conditions as long as there is a nexus. So, I mean, it would be up to the decision makers to decide, well, you know, whether they could require a change in color or whether that color would comply with the LCP, employ natural sea colors. It would be up to the decision makers, but this is an opportunity. If our role, the Midcoast Community Council, is to support the LCP, it's not up to us to come in with our personal opinions on different preferences for different colors. It's up to us, I think, to point out, this is what the LCP says, so please consider this in approving this project.
I'd like to just bring it back that, you know, it's a well-run local family business, and they're doing the right thing by moving and helping the pedestrian flow on the sidewalk. So in spirit, it's a great, you know, I think we should support them and work to see that they get a fair shake in the process, because they're, you know, it's a great asset. It's always been here, well, been here for a long time, and it's been it's a jewel. It's one of the, you know, small jewels of the coast. And I remember you talking to people, you know, away, and they couldn't remember the name of the restaurant that they stayed.
But they
Had a great time, but they do remember that it had fishnet on the ceiling. And it was, you know, it was a beautiful moment when I was able to tell them, you know, yeah, that's a great place.
Okay, what I hear everyone saying is we all totally support the project. I mean, everybody agrees that moving the traffic to the other side, you know, it's being done well, et cetera. So the real issue here, in my opinion, is more about supporting the LCP as opposed to, well, this color's great. Because what you're saying, you're kind of saying, well, then somebody comes up with something else that doesn't quite fit in with the LCP. Now, oh, well, that's okay. We can make an exception there. And before you know it, you've pretty much gutted your local coastal plan. I mean,
But
we've
it
watched
doesn't-
that happening already.
The LCP doesn't apply here now because it was grandfathered in. So it's really-
No, if they come in to get a coastal development permit, that it applies to that permit. The LCP applies to this
Well,
permit they're applying for.
there should ever be a variance for an exception, this is the moment but I would think that could be vocalized through the process as it moves forward.
Well, I actually don't have a problem with saying that they should take into consideration the LCP, because I think there's wiggle room within the LCP. I mean, they can make the determination. I mean, there's wiggle room, and, I mean, natural can be anybody's definition. I mean, that's for them to decide, I feel. So I think I think that they don't have to be mutually exclusive. I think we could support the project and simultaneously support the consideration of the LCP.
Well, the piece missing here is, I think you're right on target. What is natural or sea colors?
Right, and and that can be an issue that can be discussed, you know, by the people who ultimately make the decision.
I had put some papers out there and also for each of you, which had these quotes on them, and at the bottom of that page, it has what I had thought to suggest for a recommendation, and it was simply this, that the MCC recommends, as a condition of approval, compliance with the design guidelines and LCP policy 8.13B1, that commercial development in Princeton employ natural or sea colors. As far as my issue in bringing this to the council, that would be the only comment I would consider to make, because I love your restaurant and I think you got a great idea here. And we don't need to even say that. I mean, the county will go through their process, whether we rarely do comment at all on these early referrals, yes or no. So basically, we're not going to write a long, detailed thing here tonight, I don't sense. And so I think it would be good to just a show of hands, or do we vote on whether you want to support this or not, and we can either do it or not.
I think actually the comment that you put down at the bottom is nice. It's very well-rounded in the sense that it doesn't accentuate what, you know, how you feel about the color, anybody feels about the color itself.
Just fine.
It's a more or less blanket support saying, you know, as long as we keep in mind the guidelines set down.
Would you like to move that we
Be-
approve that
Before
comment?
before we do that, I've been trying to talk for a while now.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
So I would like us to explicitly say that we would recommend approval of this project for the various reasons that have been discussed, which is stronger than what you have. And I would like to strike the color section altogether. The statement is natural or sea color. And if you've ever looked at the variety of bottom paint colors, which everybody would think of as a sea color, or the variety of colors of sea stars, you can have or of sea slugs, you can have pretty much any possible color be a natural sea color. So rather than even raise the issue, I would just rather strike that section altogether myself.
So, can I just get an informal show of hands of people who do not want to comment on the color whatsoever? Who does not want to comment?
Could I ask
I thought you said it was okay.
Yeah, I do not.
No, I mean, it's nice how it's written because it's not making that a specific point.
So, okay, let's change this. Who would support this comment on the LCP color? you,
I have a
me?
question. I have a question.
I just want a sense of whether we just stop and give up on this, or whether we, because.
So I know what you're doing, but I need an answer here. So when they do this and they say employ natural or sea colors, does anybody have a palette of what this means when you're writing an LCP? And I don't know, maybe this is just totally left open to interpretation, or.
We don't need to worry about that now.
Well, I'll tell you why we do, because we're talking about planning Princeton, and to me, this is certainly a key piece in Princeton. And so what this, and maybe I'm going above and beyond, but that does seem important to me.
Well, it's probably important, but we're not going to solve that tonight. Basically, it seems here we have a spectrum. I have in my mind of what natural sea colors is. It's more subdued, like the muted earth tones that are suggested for the residential neighborhoods. Clearly, some on the council feel that this definition could be any color imaginable. And so, in other words, why even have this statement at all? So there's that whole range. And that wording in the LCP, we're not going to resolve that here tonight. So it's just a matter of, are we going to comment on this project or not?
I think we should comment, and like Dave said, full approval. And I think we should just strike the whole color. I don't think we need to give any attention to that.
Well, we don't need to send anything if that's the case. We don't need, if we approve of it.
Can we make a formal statement that we approve it?
Well, here's the thing. I went over the overview of the planning process at the beginning of this agenda item. And we get these referrals in the mail all the time. Well, not a flood of them, but anyway. And I look at them and I decide, is there something here we really need to go into? And for the most part, I don't bring it forward. And so, and if you go to any, on the county website, any project that's there, it says refer to MCC, and they never heard from us. So it's like the vast majority of the cases, they never hear from us, and they go ahead and approve the project. So I mean, it's like, it's not going to depend on us. And in fact, when it gets to the zoning hearing officer, and they're going to actually decide on the project, we could comment then in support of the project. We could then look at the staff report and say, oh, add this condition or that. This is just the early phase, very preliminary. And as we heard from the applicants, they're still getting lists of requirements of things they want told to do or change. So it could change significantly. So there is no requirement to say, oh, we love this project and comment now, because it's preliminary. You don't, and I think, in fact, I would be against that, because it sounds like it is in flux, and it's, I guess if that were the motion, I would vote against it, because I think the color comment should be included, and so there you are.
I think the color comment's really important, but I don't know that it's specified. When before, when I thought about this, I thought, oh yeah, natural or sea colors, and now as I listen to people speak, well, that could be a wide range. So, does anybody know anything about creating LCPs? Do they generally have something more substantial about? It seems to me that's really important if you're creating a community. Like, if we're going to plan Princeton, it seems to me we need to be clear on this.
Well, I'm a horticulturist, and when you have colors in your palette, these are with plants, and you have the quiet colors, the greens, and then you'll have accent colors, which are natural. They're the flowers of the plant, yellow or pink or whatever. But those are accent colors, and so my interpretation of this is just as when you would paint a house. You know, you might have the front door might be red.
I think we've talked too much about colors. I think that they've already established that there was a conversation about the color. It's already done. There's documentation, most likely somewhere. I think that, you know, everybody agrees that the coast side should not be painted 100% color of crab, should not be painted 100% color of tree, should not be painted 100% color of a seahorse. You know, it's the you know, the small proportion and the variety at the right times. Anyway, I think the color conversations.
Right.
I would like to make a motion to have a formal statement that the MCC recommends a condition of approval as stated.
Oh, there is no condition proposed. A condition would be, we want you to put a restriction
Well,
on this. We don't
then
need to
we
propose,
just-
if we like the project, we need to propose no conditions.
So we would just recommend approval.
Yeah, this is recommend
And like I
approval.
say,
So
we
I
don't-
make a motion that we recommend approval of the project. Give me a second.
I would second that.
So you do understand that this is an early referral and that you're proposing a blanket statement that we approve the project no matter how.
No, as,
Well,
It's-
I would make a slight wording change and say that
As
we
stated.
approve the concept of moving the window to a different location off the sidewalk.
I would, I'm not, okay, hold on. I don't have my
Maybe we're not
Rosenberg's
ready to
here
comment.
for the part, wait, just a second. What do I want to do, make a counter motion, an alternate motion, and we put that?
Yes, you can do
I
that.
don't want to amend that. I want to
Amend the
make a
motion.
counter motion.
You can make a counter motion, yes.
I would like to make a counter motion, and what was it? A substitute motion, thank you. That we, and just bear with me for a second. My substitute motion is that the MCC recommend the condition of approval compliance, as I read it before, about the color. And then we will vote, and apparently it will be voted down, but we will clear this up once and for all. Can we do that? I will, okay.
Less than 3 minutes.
And this gentleman who raised this, you're gonna let him open up.
Sure.
Yeah, real quick, you know, I said I wasn't going to comment on the color. You should make it really clear that you don't want to require them to repaint the whole building because of there's some small remodel, and you don't want the remodel to color to clash with the rest of the building. So basically, you have to allow the remodel part to match, but the comment should be that this is not a blanket situation throwing it wide open to everybody. You know, a couple blocks from me, there's a greenhouse of purple trim, which is just, you know, it belongs in Daly City, not here. So you really want to make sure that that this is not interpreted as ignoring the legal requirements that are embodied in the LCP. But I really don't think you want to require them to repaint the whole building. I don't think you want to require them to have color clash in the two parts.
Would you like to speak? Yes. Yeah, even though we can hear you, it's not on the television unless you talk into the microphone.
It's just a point of information. The fish shop is required every 2 years to have a CDP. So they've gone through the process of CDP every 2 years since.
The use
the
permit.
Use
It's a
permit,
use permit. That's
excuse me,
different.
use permit.
That's different.
Which goes through the coastal commission, according to the planner. And each 2 years, this color has been approved year after year, even though you say that once the precedent was set for the coastal commission coming in later, this has been done since then, every 2 years, and it has been approved with the color red and yellow.
The color wouldn't come up unless you're asking for another coastal development permit. The use permit renewal would not trigger a change in color or anything like that.
It's my understanding from the planner, she said that because we were applying for a use permit, it would require coastal development permit, and it always does require coastal development permit. Whether it's done in-house or not, I don't know. I assume it's done in-house. That was my understanding from the planner, Angela Chavez.
Now, do I hear your concern that the project may change, that we're at such an early
Yes,
stage?
they've been told to do a bunch of things.
Right, and so
I
that for
think-
us to say we blanketly
Yeah,
approve
it's-
everything that hasn't even been done
I
yet.
think it would be fine to comment if we want to do that when it comes before the decision maker, which is the zoning hearing officer. I think it's premature to go there now. I understand you're sympathetic with the applicant and what they're told to go through, but I don't think it's necessary for us to come out and make a statement like that now. And I would like to put to bed whether we want to support this. Can we just vote on this, please? Compliance with the design guidelines of the LCP policy 8.13B1 that commercial development in Princeton employ natural or sea colors. This is a quote from the LCP. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Well, there's two motions on the table. right?
I was making a
First and second.
substitute motion.
Right, I think the substitute motion gets voted on first.
It goes
If the
first.
substitute motion passes, that's it. If the substitute motion fails, then you go back and vote on the original motion.
We could always
No.
do another. I just wanted to put the color thing to bed. Are we gonna do it or not?
Yeah,
Enough
that-
time has been spent on this, so.
That's fine, so we're in the middle of voting.
All right.
I'm sorry, but I've lost track. Can we just back
Let
up
me
to
read,
where we were?
let me read my
I'm
proposal.
uncomfortable making the color an issue, so.
We're just gonna vote on it. We've
Yeah.
all spoken about it, we're just gonna vote. And what we're gonna vote on is that we send a recommendation saying that the compliance with the design guidelines in the LCP policy 8.13B1, that commercial development in Princeton employs natural or sea colors. All in favor?
I will.
2 to 3, loses. I mean, 3, yeah, well, however that works out.
If you want to ask 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So
May I-
I'd like to make
Oh, sorry.
a motion that we,
You have the motion
Make
out
the
there,
statement.
just call for a vote. You have the motion out there, just call for a
yeah,
vote.
okay, so I'd like to amend the motion, amend the motion, Dave, that something like MCC recommends conditional approval of compliance with the design guidelines in LCP, period.
I accept that amendment.
Okay, so there's a
You-
second?
You need to,
No, I don't
Quote
think,
the
we can keep
policy.
it general, I don't think so.
it's a big document, Dan.
Well, they're gonna be following it anyway. I just don't know that we need to, they're gonna have to follow.
I thought you,
the
okay,
LCP.
I'm confused. I thought you wanted to leave this whole thing out. You wanted to say we support compliance with the design guidelines
Can
of the
I offer up
LCP?
can I just offer up a sentence very quickly and
Yeah,
just,
sure.
we could maybe quietly just listen to it?
I'm listening.
Okay. MCC recommends the spirit of the project and respectfully requests, as a condition of approval, compliance with the design guidelines and LCP policy 8.13.
I like that.
Do you have that written down?
I do.
Thank you, because I don't scribble it quickly.
Dave?
Okay, so that's.
I'll second that.
Yeah, so
Bringing attention to the colors again, right?
I've lost track of who actually made the original motion, but I
No.
think it was me. So that amendment, I'm not comfortable with. At this point, I would rather not, clearly, the Coastal Commission is going to follow the LCP and the CDP permitting process.
Yes.
I don't think we need to make a big statement saying, please go do your job.
By the same token, if they're going to do it anyway, then why not say
Support
that
them,
we're,
huh?
why not say that we respectfully request that they do that? I mean, if it's, I understand if you're saying we're reiterating what they're gonna do anyway, but what's
So
the harm?
In the interest of not prolonging the discussion, and because I don't think it's necessary, I'm going to withdraw my motion.
All right, I'd just like to point out, I think it was nicely written. Also, we need to keep in mind this early referral stuff. We're talking to the planner. We're not talking to the Board of Supervisors.
Right.
You know, it's this informal memo kind of stuff. I'm happy if we just table this item at this point.
Yeah, I think
everyone-
that, at this point, I would be happy with that, and perhaps we can all think about what our positions are.
I move just to support it as it's proposed.
I second that motion.
And this is opposed to just tabling it, which was just.
Yeah, no, I
just-
think.
So this
We've
is
already had
a-
a
this
discussion.
is a new
There's some
motion.
token approval,
Well-
positive message for the.
So we don't want to table it. You do want to comment.
You made a motion?
I don't
right?
want to table it. I'm just saying, as it's proposed now, I support it as it has been proposed to us.
And you think it's important that we tell the planner that?
That we support it?
Yeah,
Important enough that I'm mentioning it.
Yeah, I do think that is worthwhile.
So that's a motion, I second it. Can we take a vote?
All in favor?
Aye.
3 in favor? Opposed? 4.
There you go.
So, we're done with that item.
Now it's been tabled.
I like tables, depending on their color.
There you go.
Oh my, where are we?
I don't know, but
You realize that
Keep it, my go-to.
4D is the Coastside Emergency Action Program. And this is Joel Janot's item. Desired outcome is to appoint an MCC representative and alternate to the KEEP Executive Committee.
Or the CAP Executive Committee, yeah.
KEEP. KEEP?
Keep, depending on who you talk to, you know, I mean, whoever I've talked to, they've mentioned it as CAP.
Really?
But I'm talking to San Mateo. And this is Half Moon Bay, Coastside, so
they're farther
our
south.
inflections are a little bit different, you know.
All right, so,
South.
what do we got for us?
Not a whole lot. I was at the KEEP/CAP meeting last Friday, and it was the first one I had been to. It was a little bit of an eye-opener. It's a subject I'm very interested in. I'm currently going through my CERT training, which unfortunately they don't have here on the coast side. Some of the things, Nick recapped a little bit of it, you know, some of the issues that have come up. So I'm very interested in bringing those issues to the community because there's not a lot of people that know we even have, you know, the emergency action plan. There's not a lot of people that know that the only reason we have that is because the Chamber of Commerce, you know, got behind it, surprisingly, even though they're not usually the entity that does that. So Bill Kehoe has previously been our representative. Hopefully he remains, you know, on the board itself. But as the MCC rep, I would like to be that individual.
I make a motion that we appoint Joel Janot to the, however one pronounces, the CEAP.
The KEEP CAP.
Program.
I will enthusiastically second that motion.
Now, all those in favor? Wait, I'm not the chair. I'm getting in the spirit.
Tired. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So do we need an alternate?
So we do need an alternate.
Thanks, Linus.
No.
Thanks, Nicholas. Does anybody want to volunteer to be an
Can
alternate?
I volunteer Nicholas?
I'll volunteer to be an alternate.
Dan. So,
Dan, they meet the first Friday of the month at 8:30 to 10:30.
The next meeting is March 7th.
Is it a monthly meeting?
monthly meeting,
First Friday of the
daytime.
month. So it's on a Friday between 8:30 and 10:30, so if you're working, it'll be fine. Something like that. Not, it's just two separate meetings, but this is for the.
So it's
executive.
definitely a monthly, I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
kind of thought that it was like
Every once in a blue moon.
every biannual or something. Well, you know, I could fill in and be an alternate if there was something, you know, I could take one day. It's not like opening up saying, you know, I'm planning and I'm okay with myself, I'm gonna take, you know, every month off. So that would be one meeting a month, that would be a little bit of an issue. But I think that if there was ever an issue, we could, you know, nominate another alternate.
It says that Joel's got a lot of energy for this and he won't miss a meeting.
No, and the nice thing is my commute's short enough that I could get there in no time at all.
Is it
But if you want to be, so that would lighten your load, if there was one
Yeah.
even.
So I'm okay
shall
with
we-
being an alternate.
Shall we approve that? Everybody okay?
Mm-hmm.
Aye.
All right, Dan's the alternate. So I, as chair, I will write to this committee the official letter that will, I'll use the template from the letter that was written last fall. Okay, so, council activity. Do council members have correspondence or meetings attended to report?
Yes.
Let's go around so I don't have to be blamed for people not being, let's start.
Nothing for me.
Okay.
Oh, let's see. Leonard can help me out. I think it was like the 22nd or 23rd. I went to the GSD meeting, which was. Did I already mention this at the retreat? I can't remember. I guess I should check the minutes, huh?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, who's the secretary anyway?
Yeah, who's the secretary of this outfit? Anyways, I was at the GSD meeting. They were happy with LAFCO's decision, although there was some confusion about what Supervisor Horsley was advocating with regard to a ad hoc group to look at consolidation or something. I think Supervisor Horsley addressed that at,
Our retreat.
at our retreat. So, but it was a nice, it had a good feeling to the meeting, and I could tell that GSD people were pretty pleased with that. So, and then the other thing is, I spoke with Neil Mariles about he attended a conference call for the county-sponsored agency work group dealing with funding for planning, permitting in the southern section of the Midcoast Highway 1 parallel trail. Some things that came out of that meeting were that one thing that's possible that's being discussed, we need a short-term plan and a long-term plan, because that, as I was saying to Neil, I was out on that little strip of trail right at Surfers Beach, and there was puddles of water on the roadway, essentially, that would only have gotten there from high waves because it hadn't rained yet. So, and that happens every big storm. So, we're very close. So we need a long-term and short-term. One of the ideas, I guess, is possibly a seawall put in place as the stopgap, and then with a beach replenishment component following up on that, so that the seawall would be there, and then beach replenishment would eventually cover up the seawall. You wouldn't even know it's there, but it's kind of like a backbone that is there. That's just an idea. Dave Holland has agreed to kind of spearhead working with government leaders on this, because the problem with this issue is multiple jurisdictions. Let's see. Whatever long-term plan has to be followed up by a beach replenishment program. Don Horsley has decided that the county will more or less be the lead agency. They don't want to provide all the funding, but there's so much, well, I've got this part, what are you going to do? Well, we're going to do this part, that somebody has to provide leadership here, and so de facto, Don has decided to step into that position. Somebody's got to do it, although it's been discussed that possibly, because of all the jurisdictions, we may have to kick it upstairs to Congresswoman Jackie Spears' office of this may be just so many jurisdictions and so many little fiefdoms here that it has to go up to the federal level and get somebody to come in and, lasso up all these cats and get it all together. So that's essentially what came out of that conference call, as far as Neil reported to me.
Thank you.
Thud.
Dan, you anything?
Just remind that there's going to be a Harbor District meeting next Wednesday. I believe it's February 19th, right? In South San Francisco. Typically, the meetings are the first and third Wednesday of the month, and they've been interesting. So, if you can attend, please do.
I'll wait till last. Laura?
I have not attended anything.
Erin?
I have, but it doesn't have anything to do with it.
Joel?
I did the KEEP meeting on Friday. I will bring more information, to whatever meeting we have after the next meeting on the 7th. There was the introductory one. Like I said, Nick kind of capped a little bit of it about the Medical Reserve Corps being disbanded on the coast and the concerns about that. So that's basically it.
Okay, I have a number of items.
Oh, no.
Yeah, sorry. So on January 25, I went to the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve Forest Creek Restoration Field meeting, and I submitted detailed comments to Parks Department as an individual. Didn't seem appropriate to post that on our website because that's just me, but anyway, we should be finally seeing actual plans in a couple of weeks, I think, so looking forward to that. Also, Chris and I met with Chris Mickelson, who lives in El Granada and is trying to get traction for disc golf at Murata Surf East. Chris Mickelson asked to meet with me, and I included Chris Johnson, and we made it clear to him we weren't representing the MCC or endorsing his process, but we listened to what he had to say and gave him some pointers on process and things like there's no master plan for Murata Surf and things that have to happen that, county process, give him a reality check kind of a thing. But just to be aware that there is a group that he has formed. It's a very small group at the moment. They have formed a 501c3. You may have heard him speak at the Parks meeting. He asked Marlene Finley to, said he was looking forward to working with her. So that was that. Oh, then Len Erickson organized a coastal trail walk with County Parks Director Marlene Finley on Monday, February 3rd. This is like the follow-up from that letter that we approved in November, I think it was. That's the walkable coastline route from the Marine Reserve to Pillar Point. And he invited TJ Glauthier, who lives in Seal Cove, and me, who is weeding on Bluff, and a neighbor to it, to come along. But it was basically Len's tour. He's taken various people on this tour. He's taken Nicholas and Don Horsley and Janet Deal from the, anyway, whatever. So that's been done. And on February 5th, the counties forwarded us a letter on the Big Wave project. It's basically a copy of a letter the county planning wrote to the Big Wave group with details on the project application status, which is still incomplete, but there's a lot of detail in there of what they're still expected to do. And the Big Wave issues page on our website is being updated as new documents come in. So if you want to follow that process, just check there. On February 28th, I will attend the Princeton Plan Steering Committee meeting, which is this existing conditions report. They'll go to the steering committee first, and they'll be coming here on March 12th. Some website updates. The Highway 1 issues page has been updated with, the text is updated, particularly the parallel trail, which I'm now calling the multimodal, Highway 1 multimodal trail, because that's what Nicholas called it in the grant application, and there's no fighting it. Once he's changed the name, you might as well just go with it. So, and the transportation management plan, I put a section there, and there's links there now to the documents that we were asking for at the retreat that he's been sending along. So you might check there to see if there's something you want to look into further. And the news post on the home page of the website, recent posts I put there, the new natural resources manager, little thing on her, and that the Wicklow property now has been transferred to the county, this parcel. So I'm interested to know, council members, if, who subscribes to those news posts so that actually comes in your, does anyone
From
here
the
actually
county?
subscribe? No, on our website.
Oh.
When I post something, pardon?
You're talking about RSS?
Yes.
I tried, it didn't.
So nobody?
I do.
Just,
No.
okay, so two people. Basically, click on the link. I mean, if you're on my computer, there's an option on the left. You can either receive in your email, or if you have an RSS, whatever, there's options there. But I'm not a tech person. But I just wanted to know, because when I post on the website, I hear news, I post it there, and then I wonder if I also need to send the council members an email if you'd be interested. So, or do you go to the website regularly and look anyway?
Question?
What?
If one were to sign up for the RSS feed, can you tell me exactly what one would receive?
You would receive,
How many?
if you look at our website, on the home page, the left-hand column, the posts that are there, that's our news feed. And basically what you would get is anytime I post something there, you would get that.
So how often do you typically post?
Look at the website and you'll see. You'll get a history.
You can't answer the question?
It varies.
Yeah, it totally depends on
Sometimes
what
a
comes
bunch
up.
of things come
I'm
up
just saying
and
average.
I don't
1 to 4
have that
times a
number,
week,
I'm
I would
sorry.
say.
I think, I don't, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I go to the website on enough occasions, so
All right,
I
so
don't feel
that's
like I
fine.
need to sign up for RSS.
Okay.
I was
So
going
I do
to
that work.
reiterate that you've done a good job of organizing it so that it is in that one spot, and I know I can just go and scroll down there until I've caught up, you know.
All right.
And so therefore, and I have a problem with the county, their feeds. Like, I get a ton of stuff from the county, and most of it, when I try to click through, it doesn't go anywhere, and it's just, you know, I'll open my inbox, there's 20 emails from the county, and they're all the same thing. I'm just
Let
delete,
me
delete, delete.
explain.
That was probably some
That-
malfunction.
Let me explain that. They're in the process of updating their website, and it's a big project. And I've experienced the same thing, and this will go away. Basically, it comes through and there's nothing, it says something's been updated and
Yeah.
doesn't tell you what.
Yeah.
Just delete them all. It'll stop soon, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. They're
Madam
just,
Chair?
it should, yes.
But in the parlance of web, that results in churn, which is, I don't even look, I get those things from the, I didn't even bother anymore because there's so many times now it's been worthless that I don't go. And so you reach that tipping point of, it's nice to be notified, but I think that's what Dan was getting to, like, how many emails am I gonna get? And so that's why I wanted to say, I think the way you've organized the website, all of us are gonna be going there, a few times a week probably for our business, and I don't think that, I don't feel the personal need to sign up because I know where to go for the new information and I'm there enough that I just don't need another email.
My concern is that, like, if I get correspondence or I find out something, sometimes I will send that out to you as an FYI, as an email, and then I know you've got it. If I post it on the website, I think, did they get it or not? So it sounds to me like you're fine with what's going on and I shouldn't worry about it. Just a point to make that on our Facebook page, I post a lot more stuff there than I do on our website. I'll post links to news articles and stuff that didn't seem appropriate to put on the website. So it is a important part of our community outreach, I think. I mean, you can have whatever opinions you have about Facebook, but it does reach some people, and the way they've got to set it up now, if you don't have people liking your posts or sharing your posts or stuff like that, they don't get Facebook decides not to put them in people's news feeds, even though you have X number of people who have liked your site. Supposedly they're seeing it in their news feed. They're not, because if you're the admin of the Facebook page, you can see X number of people saw this post. It's on every one. And I could post something and say, 9 people saw this post, or 27 people saw this post. Well, what the heck? Who's deciding this, And I know for sure that the one time when we were trying to publicize our parks meeting, and I said to you, please, just make the point of going to the Facebook page and sharing that post, because then Facebook will decide, oh, people want to see this, and more people will see it. And I don't know, maybe only 1 or 2 people actually shared it, but wow, what a difference that made. It just, either that person I'm not friends or what, I don't know, but
wasn't me.
But it, just a plea that even though you might really not like Facebook, go to our Facebook page sometime and either tell it to come into your newsfeed or just go there occasionally and something important and share it or like it or something. And this is also a venue where if people are interested and want to give feedback, they can on that Facebook page. I post all these articles and things in our agenda. It's an opportunity. If people are using it, going there, they can comment. And so I think it's a useful resource, and that was just a plea for that.
Madam Chair, could I ask you to announce the CDRC opening for Montera and the architect?
On the Facebook page? As
I
long
was
as you
asking
share
you.
it and like it.
No, I just meant this evening. It should have been done in a separate spot.
Do they have to live in Montana?
You want something said at this
Oh,
meeting?
really?
Right this minute.
Because I have
It's all
someone for you
yours.
guys.
This is just to let folks know what the openings are for the Coastside Design Review Committee. And we desperately need somebody from Montera. So if you know of anyone, if you have friends that you think might be interested, have them certainly contact, if you know we have a website, the council, or go to the county's Design Review Committee website to get the contact information. We also need an architect, which would be part-time, spending time in the Bayside and part-time on the coast side. So at any rate, think of anybody that you might know and have them call us.
From Montera.
The architect can be from anywhere in San Mateo County.
But the community rep needs to be from, we need somebody from Montera.
Yes.
Bad. And on the MCC homepage, on the right column, under focus topics, right near the top, there's a Coastside Design, and you click that link, and then there's documents there like desirable attributes for a coastside design review. And it's interesting reading, and so you get a sense of, oh, I know somebody who would be good for that, so, yeah, please.
Okay.
It's important.
Lisa, I did have one other thing to share. before we
Okay.
adjourn, yeah. At the same time as tonight's meeting, the Half Moon Bay City Council had a special meeting on replacing the Half Moon Bay Library. The materials came out late this afternoon. So, you know, I don't know what happened. I saw some of the supporting materials, but if anybody here or watching this is concerned about what happens with the library, go look at the Half Moon Bay City Council page and see what they are planning. The current building is owned by the city of Half Moon Bay, even though it's a county library, which is why the city council is involved.
Okay, future agendas. I have here Plan Princeton on March 12th. That should take 30 to 45 minutes. Anybody else got something?
I do. I have two things that I would like to add to one of the upcoming agendas, and I'm certainly open to hearing which ones. The first is I'd like to, with Lisa's assistance, prepare a presentation on one of the topics that I brought up at our retreat, which is the rodenticide ban in San Mateo County. So I would like to be able to come in with some information about that. And then I also was thinking that if it's possible, and I don't know because I haven't reached out to them yet, but I would like to try to get a rep from RATS, which is the organization. Wait, what does it stand for?
Raptors are the
solution.
Solution.
Raptors are the solution. So, and they've been very instrumental in getting other counties on board with support for banning rodenticides within, you know, those areas. So, at any rate, I would like to do that. And then in addition to that, I had also brought up the Sister Cities International possibility. And so I have some information on that I would like to be able to share. And I would imagine that'll probably be 10 minutes.
And so we could probably do the rodenticides on February 26th. Did you have a time frame you had in mind for the other item? When you'd be ready for that?
Really, anytime. I mean, maybe I wouldn't want to do two things in the same night. So like March 12th or the 26th, if you want to, if you think we'll be ready in time to do the.
And you have something that you want to present for around 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing, does anybody else have something?
I'm sorry, from my notes here. So the rodenticide on the 26th and the sister cities?
We haven't
on the
decided.
12th? Oh, haven't decided.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I've got it down for when it will fit. All right.
Okay.
The other thing, I sent you an email about the 16-unit El Granada apartment building. That we just got this, and they're calling it a pre-application. Basically, when you have my understanding is when you have a large project there, the county requires like a pre-application workshop. And that's what this is called, pre-application, yet there's no date here for a workshop or anything. So, and I put in 2 calls to the planner today, she didn't get back to me. So I don't, basically in this this is another early referral, and this one calls, and these are soft dates because we can comment at any time, but when they send these out to these other agencies, they pretty much like to get them back. And the date she asked for is February 21st, which is before our next meeting, but I don't think we need to have a special meeting for this, especially since we don't even know if they're going to schedule a community workshop or anything like that. So I would say, depending on what I can find out from the planner, we might consider having this at our February 26th meeting, but that would depend on whether anyone wants to sponsor this issue and do the research necessary to come up with some proposed comments. And this is in El Granada, and so I'm not.
It's on Sonora and where?
Coronado and
Coronado.
You know, from
Portola. No,
Portola.
Portola.
Okay, Portola.
Yeah.
Coronado and Portola.
So that's by the.
So from the post office, you just go straight up the hill on
Straight
the
up.
right-hand side, across the
No,
street.
I
One
think it's
block
on-
up,
I think it's on the
on
left.
the right-hand side.
There's the map.
Goes up the hill.
Well, they're all zoned around there for this, correct?
It's the
In that
biggest empty
area.
lot, it's gotta be.
Well, that's exactly it. If you wanted to comment on this, it would require looking up the zoning, find out how all this works, and as you know, we don't have a planning and zoning committee, and we haven't really delved into these things, and,
Can I follow up with this on email?
sure. So, I guess, I'm not hearing that anybody here is just burning to pursue this issue.
Well, I am burning about this issue, but I just don't feel that I have the bandwidth right now to tackle that. That's why I was glad to hear that Dan is interested, because I think that people of El Granada would definitely like to see this as an agenda issue, even at this early date, because these things start to get their kind of their own momentum
Well,
going.
I think what I'll push for is, like I say, I'll pursue this with the planner and say, when is the community workshop? Because I think that would be best.
I agree totally.
That is not on
Yes.
our plate.
And then we don't
Because-
have to spend time trying to get information that will then be presented anyhow.
Because you have to come from an educated place to, otherwise you're just gonna, your comments will be useless.
Yeah. Okay, so you're gonna see if the planner will provide us with a community workshop. Maybe we could help the planner, we could have it at one of our meetings or something?
Well, no, the county would hold a workshop. What I remember is that they usually have them like at El Granada School.
So my understanding is, so it's pre-application, there's no really hard deadline for to respond, and we're kind of pending a community workshop that is not been scheduled yet. So there's a lot of information we don't have.
Right. I wanted to get a sense of if there was somebody here who wanted to take this issue and run with it. And I'm not getting that, so we're sort of in a, we'll see what develops, and I'll
Well, here's why I'm
check back in with you.
First, yeah, like I was just saying, if they're gonna do a workshop, then I don't see us taking time to investigate every detail on this until we at least even get the big picture here. Then I would consider taking a look at whether or not I would pick up on it. So if you can get that information out, if the
All right,
planner is
so
ready or willing.
I'll let you know as soon as I find out what gives. All right, so, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I believe
A quick question, just before we do, did the gent from the, what's the?
Dream machines.
Dream machines, did he ever get back to you?
He did not.
Okay.
So we're off the hook.
Yeah, when I was chair, I offered to have him on too.
Okay.
So he's
He's
had many offers.
Okay.
I just happened to see that meeting announcement in the newspaper.
Yeah.
So I reached out to him, but he did not reply.
Okay. So you were saying, move to adjourn?
Motion
Oh,
to adjourn.
yes.
I'll second.
Oh, all right, meeting adjourned.
Let's do it.
9:12.
Well, apparently it's not as